Welcome back to Vectorworks 2013. This is the Design Second Year A course, and this is episode 3B, where we're going to discuss the solutions to some of the challenges set out from 2B, and have a look at the final challenge that we set in 3A as well. So, looking on here, I'm going to start off with our file here from the end of 2A and that I started in 2B, and you can see I've got my 10 design layers here. Just to refresh your memory, this was the small isometric drawings that I asked you to have a go at drawing in 3D, so you can remember I picked up, this is number 10 here, and I'm going to go through and start these up. I'm just going to whiz through 11 because if you've seen previous video 2B, you'll know how to do 11, and then I'm going to stop and do 12 together. So let's just time-lapse this up. So it turns out number 11 was a little bit tricky. I had to do a little 45-degree rotation there so that I could then rotate that rectangle that was on top downwards. There's a couple other ways you could have done that, but mainly it's just important to remember which way you need to rotate something, and I could have also done it with my 3D rotation options up here under Rotate 3D. But we're going to move on to number 12, which was my first kind of suspect one, and mainly this one, for me personally, is a demonstration of where you need to change your plane alignment. So as opposed to drawing them from top down, I've just jumped in my top plan there with the 0 key on the numpad, as opposed to drawing a rectangle as I have been from above, extruding it and then cutting into it, this time I'm actually going to jump into a left-hand view here. I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to choose position at next click. This time my width is actually the length of the object, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 80 for me, and the height this time is the depth. But you'll see here as I do this example, I'm just going to jump in here. I actually will be using this. There we go. So that's positioned that center on 0, 0. Which is fine for me, but we're in a side view at the moment. So when I extrude this through this view, and this is now actually the width of 1, 2, 3, it's only 4 for this one, so 40 in there, you can see my box has been drawn this way. Now, this isn't the important part, I'm actually going to take it back a step there. Before we do that, I want to make a cut into this, or several cuts in fact. So I'm going to grab my circle tool and draw a couple of circles in here. They each have a length of 10. And using my move command, I'm going to shuffle those around to where they need to be. So this one needs to move backwards 2 in the X direction, and it needs to move down 2 in the Y direction. It should land there. And then we're going to just duplicate that one. So copy that, and then a paste in place. There we go, and I'm just going to move that once again in the Y direction. No, sorry, in the X direction. And it needs to move 1, 2, 3, 30 across. So you should end up with that. You can see I've got two circles, just the centers are 30 apart there with the move command. Now this one that I'm looking at has a curve cut out of this top corner as well. So there's two ways you could do it. We could do it with the fillet tool. We'd have to type in some numbers there and get that correct, which I think would be 20 millimeters according to my calculations. But I'm going to show you another way with a double clip here. So I'm just grabbing my circle tool, drawing this out to here, which is 20 millimeters, and that's the cut that I want there. But you can't just cut this like tiny portion, I guess, out of that rectangle. It just doesn't work that way. So we do a thing called a double cut, which is where you get a template object, such as this rectangle that fits in here perfectly, and I'm going to bring the big circle to the front. So just Control F for that, and that's in front now, and I'm going to grab that square in there as well. So now I've got the two objects selected. I'm going to right click and clip the surface. You can see it's taken one away from the other, and I'm left with this little sliver here of what was remaining out of my square or rectangle. So I pop that back in there, and I'm going to get rid of the circle. And this is why it's a double cut, because now I'm going to grab this object here, the rectangle in the back, and this little sliver of pie here, right click, clip. And it's telling me that's not in the same plane. It says it's in the 3D plane, so I'm just going to drop this down and put it on the screen plane. So that swaps it from being a 3D object onto my plane. Grab the both of those, clip the surface, delete, and there you go. I've got a nice little rounded object out there. Now I'm just going to make sure these have also been drawn on the 3D plane. Pop those onto screen, and screen align. I'm just going to change that to screen plane so we avoid that happening again. So now I can cut these objects away from this as well, because they go all the way through in my little drawing here. There we go. And now this is ready to extrude out that 40. So you can see I've saved myself some time by doing those steps as a 2D object and then extruding it through, as opposed to having to deal with an extra 3D component of having to draw something that was 3D to cut this out, all of these in 3D, etc, etc. It's just saving you some clicks and steps. And then the last little piece is just that cutout that's come through here from the side. So it starts in this corner here, goes up here, leaves one space, which means this must be 70 long, and then comes across, and it looks like it cuts halfway through at the 20 marker. Extrude that out to a depth of 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at that in a side view. Just going to move that up with my move command there to 10 millimeters. Just accidentally hitting my Z key. And then both of those, you can see that's fully inserted inside there. Right click on that, subtract the solids from the highlighted one, hit OK, and there we go. Just throw that in a render to have a look, and that's it. Cool. So now that we know about all of that, I'm going to go ahead and do 13, 14, 15, 16, and I'll come back and see you for 17.
There's something missing, this apparition where the light ones shine. I know it's hollow, I guess we all know when it's time. With no emotion, a slow explosion with a flash of light. But I won't close my eyes, and we are blinded by it all, and we are waiting for the fated word to fall. There's no surrender. Our last offenders walked away and died. Is this attrition or just submission to the tide? These final moments, our last opponents are upon us now. But I can only see your face.
So we're now up to 17, and this one's a little bit of a tricky one. I had to spend a good couple of minutes looking at it and figuring out how I would do it. And there's two techniques we can use basically. We have the 3D polygon option here under the 3D toolset, or we could use lofting, which we haven't actually learnt about yet. So I'm going to do 3D polygons, and then we'll see if we can do it with lofting later on in lesson 4 as a little example. So what I'm going to start off here is just drawing our regular rectangle. It's 50 by 80 again. There we go. And I'm going to draw these marker lines in. So this one goes out to here. I'm going to press tab 3 times to get in here and do a height of, no, it's a height of 20 in there. So you can see that puts my guideline here in on the Y for my line, and I know it intersects here, this point here. Going to mirror that to the other side, and then I'm going to grab both of those, holding down Shift, copy, paste, and then move. Moving those up 20, which is already in there. So this is the bottom line of that train, and this is the top line of that train, or the train front guard thing that I'm kind of looking at the moment, number 17. So I'm going to use a 3D polygon now, while we're still in the 2D plane, and I'm just going to trace out 1/2 of this to there. If you have a look over in the sidebar, there's no real difference to this apart from a regular polygon, except it's got this Z value in here, which means it's actually in the 3D world already. All of these Z values, make sure this is on vertex only mode, should have a 0 in there. And if you have a look, you might be able to see it, but as I'm flicking through these on my screen, there's a little dot flashing in each of the corners. That tells you which vertex you're on. Now, these two down the bottom, this one here where my mouse is at the moment, and this one here, they have a Z height of 0. But these two top ones have a Z height of 40. So I'm just going to go through here and change this Z height to 40, move on to the next one, and make this one 40, hit enter, and then the other two will be the same. And if you have a look at this now, as I go through my 3D flyover and slightly move it, you'll see the other objects, they can pretty much bugger off, but we've got this 3D plane sitting there. I'll see if I undo that, and I'll just make this into a 3D object as well, extrude that out to 40, and I'm going to get rid of our marker lines because I actually don't need them anymore. So you can see that's what I've got here in a top plan view, but that's how it actually looks inside the object. See how it's created that flat piece that we want. So now that I've got that, I'm going to shift this box away temporarily. I'm going to grab this plane and mirror it. Now unfortunately, seeing as this is a 3D polygon and not an actual object, there's not a lot I can do with it in terms of cutting into this block. So I've got to turn these two things into blocks as well. What I'm going to do is grab my push-pull tool, which is here, and I'm going to grab the surface of each of these and bring them out to be boxes. I'm also going to bring them out this way a little bit, because they need to overlap a bit more. And I also have to go underneath them, which I'm going to have to do with the flyover tool here, and just pull their bottoms down a little bit. So grab my push-pull. Now that looks like a higgledy-piggledy mess, but you're just going to have to trust me on that I've covered all the bases there. I'm going to grab my original rectangle and bring that back in and lock it in. And now we're going to do a big subtraction of all of that and see what happens. So subtract the solids. Oh, I've still got original pieces in there. Subtract the solids, hit OK, and there we go. So that one's a really tough one, and if you've gotten through that by yourself without watching this video, congratulations, good work. Just have a look at the flyover to make sure I got all the bits, and I did. That's okay. And then obviously there's just that little top piece, which we all know is just a rectangle. What's that, negative 20, and it's just extruded to 50, and without even going into another view, I'm just going to add those together because I'm pretty sure that's correct. And if we have a look at that now, there we go. Now you will notice a line here, that's just computing for Vectorworks, because this is now a very strange and complex object. Just put that line in to delineate, I believe. It's not actually there. Okay, we're looking at that in the render mode, and no, it's not. It's not actually real. So that's a bit of a tricky one. I'm now just going to fly through and do 18, 19, and 20, and then we'll move on to the exercise from the end of 3A. So I'll see you in a sec. There we have it, ladies and gents. That's the first, 20 done now. We're flying through them. I'm going to leave this track going underneath because I think it's an awesome track. But yeah, that's going quite well for us. Stay tuned next week. Obviously, I'll probably complete the remaining 16. If not, we'll just complete it in the next video after that. We'll just do 10 at a time. We'll see what happens. But now we're going to move on forward. So we're going to look at the project set out by the last video. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so we're up to the challenge that was set out in the end of 3A, which was to find a geometric sculptural piece and to try and represent that in 3D in Vectorworks as best you can. So I've been browsing the web and I found this, which is, in my opinion, the coolest thing I've seen in a very long time. So I'm going to have a go at drawing this. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out. I'm just looking at it now, and there's some complex shapes. There's some which we can kind of tick the box. For example, the green one. That's going to be a bit interesting. And yeah, I'm just going to really have to have a play. So I'm going to time-lapse this, see how I go. Just starting from probably the left-hand side and working my way across. I will try and pause it if I get to something relevant to you guys, or I might just put up a quick title display as I'm going through to let you know if there's something going on. So here I go.
stars inside. Gratitude replacing pride. You've been lifted up by a friend who carries you to the other side. Tiny, turning, pushing you through this endless night with hope emerging, pulling your heart to the light. Time is turning, pushing you through this endless night with hope emerging, pulling your heart to the light. Walk straight to the light. Oh, oh, oh. Straight to the light. Oh, oh, oh. Out of the night. Oh, oh, oh. Straight to the light. Straight to the light. Oh, oh, oh. Out of the night. Oh, oh, oh. Straight to the light. Straight to the light. Oh, oh, oh. Out of the night. Oh, oh, oh. Straight to the light.
Quisiera gritar de la montaña más alta, decirle al mundo que encontré el amor y lo que es para mí. Pero a mi alrededor solo hay violencia y leyes que me traban. Tal vez un día comprenderán. El amor no es solo un hombre y una mujer. El amor es extraño y descontrolado. Le pasa a cualquiera. El amor es más que ella lo conoce a él. El amor es más que él la conoce a ella. Quisiera gritar de la montaña más alta, decirle al mundo que encontré el amor y lo que es para mí. Pero a mi alrededor solo hay violencia y leyes que me traban. Tal vez un día comprenderán. El amor no es solo un hombre y una mujer. El amor es extraño y descontrolado. Le pasa a cualquiera. El amor
So ladies and gents, there we have my attempt at this. It's constantly re-rendering at the moment because this is in final quality. And it looks like I need to do one more rotation, which I didn't note before. Just throwing that back into wireframe, jumping up here. This looks like it's on a 45-degree angle there. Yeah, I'll save the document. Sounds like a great idea. Looks like it sits somewhere about there. Oh, and I've accidentally duplicated that. It's quite late here for me, so apologies for that. But in a 3D view there, I'm going to use final quality Renderworks, which obviously we'll learn about at the end of 5A. Yeah, that sounds about right. But you can see there, I've had a fairly good go, and I'll bring the picture up again, if it's not up already. That's going to be my stab at that. There's a few imperfections in here, like I'd love to have some rounding inside all of these holes in here, and obviously that object there needs a bit of scaling work to it. Things like these blobs could have that kind of rendery texture to them, but if you have a look at the image there close up on the green one, it's actually got some grooves done in there, which we can actually do with bump mapping, which is something hopefully we'll learn about in the 5A video about rendering. So as opposed to having to actually put all those grooves in, I could just make it look like the grooves are there. Anyway, that's my interpretation of it. I'll put it on OpenGL so we can just have a fly around of it. There are a few tricky bits and pieces in there. What is this episode? It's 3B, so you're not actually going to know how to do the green spiral yet. That's coming up for you in 4. I've already recorded that. But I think that's a pretty good stab at that. I think this is actually uneven in the picture, but I've drawn it as even. Whatever, you know, it's my interpretation. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you for the next series of videos. Now, this is 3B. So I'm away in Europe for the next 4 weeks. While I've done that, I've pre-recorded some episodes and I'm recording some while I'm over there. So you'll get little 10-minute videos from me which will show one puzzle challenge and then a completion of the previous puzzle challenge while I'm away. So if you're watching this, you'll know about that. I'll also write a little comment on my page feed. But apart from that, enjoy the next series of videos. I think they'll be C, D, E and F, and then we'll jump straight back into 4A when I'm back. Otherwise, enjoy, and I will see you soon.